Hello, everybody. It's Lenny Murphy here with another in our CEO series of interviews. And today I am joined by Steve King, CEO of Black Swan. Steve, welcome.
Good morning, Lenny.
So you and I were chatting beforehand about your story. So I really want you to tell us your story because there's a piece of it that I just thought was great. So tell us a little about yourself and how you got to Black Swan.
Getting in there with the honest questions already. So Lenny saw my decks just on the side. So I actually didn't start off as a CEO of a technology company. I started off as a DJ for 23 years, managed to get a dubious #1 hit in Korea, did the European Ibiza circuits, and then realized I wasn't very good at it and got a real job.
Oh, I just love that. That's our journey, though, as people, right? We try things and realize, oh, I kind of suck at this, and when you fall into something new, that's like, oh, okay, this I can do.
Well, they
Although it's
told
interesting.
me so
Well, is it so? But I have to ask a question: is your experience of mixing uh, music, did that help spur the idea of Black Swan of mixing data? Right? Do you think yourself as the remix master of data?
But there definitely is something in the way that you're bringing data together to tell a story, bringing the tunes together in a different way, to tell the right story so people can see the future. I think Black Swan actually started with myself and a fellow founder, Hugo, as all good companies should do in a pub in some random country we probably shouldn't have been in. Um, uh, and that the realization actually was, I guess it was similar, is that we realized there was lots of data not being used. At the time we were thinking like weather data, but also social data. And we're like, there's all these kind of amazing data sources, and companies just look at sales or surveys. They look at the same thing every day, and they don't look at these data sources. And we were like, and the problem is then is that you miss real facts. So like the Black Swan story of a future we didn't see because we weren't looking at the right data source. So that's really kind of why why I'm here and why sort of Black Swan came about, is we sort of had this conversation, which meant cheap is like with all these things, like should we could start a company called Black Swan, which is help people predict the future by using different data sources which they never thought of using in order to make things more accurate. But Hugo always says I'm the worst DJ he's ever heard, so I think he's probably trying to take me off the market and then to save his ears rather than anything else.
Well, still, forever in my head, you're going to be now. I'm going to think of Steve King, the data DJ. So that's that yeah. So that's now your nickname in my mind, whether that's a good one or not. So so well, let's talk about that journey then. So you and Hugo had this realization of wow, lots of data that's unutilized that actually is useful and does have predictive value. So tell me a little bit how you've operationalized that into building the company and kind of where you are now.
So seeing as you the I should probably do the honest rest of the interview as well. When we started Black Swan, we thought it was going to be a small consultancy service of 11 or 12 people, looking at data sources and going to companies and helping them use it. And I remember our first, we're an analytics company really when we started, and our first kind of deck was, big data, isn't it really scary? Give us 50 grand and we'll make sure you don't look like a fool in front of your boss. That was kind of like that was. And then, as time got on, we hired people who were much smarter than us, and we started working with real big data, really. And we started to realize the bigger the data source, the bigger you could project forward. So the more data you had, the better you could forecast. And then we started thinking, wow, how far can we do this? Our first projects were, this weekend there's going to be an uptake in burgers, or this weekend that people are going to watch this Disney movie. But then we're like, well, if we could take in more of the internet, how far could we project that prediction forward now and stay accurate and relevant? And then with some great deals with people like Twitter and a couple of other data sources, we were able to ingest sort of 5-7 years of data, and we suddenly started seeing, oh my god, we can not just predict the weekend, like we can get out a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then a big breakthrough, 6 months. We can now accurately 90% of the time predict a trend in 6 months, whether it's going to go up or down, and that is just insane. So, and then we're like, god, we've got this amazing product, now we need to learn research where this is going to be useful. So I kind of come in from like yourself, with your background, really understanding how to talk to customers, and with the consultancy side of which you built. Mine's a bit more of a technology build, which is just kind of finding its home really in the research world, which is having a bit of revolution itself. And then now we've got to the point we've got 15, 16 really serious customers who are completely changing the way they're doing their insight and research, and just really excited to be a part of that puzzle. With a few of the other kind of guys like us who are just trying to move it on a bit to a bit more analytic prose research rather than where we've been in the past.
Yeah. So excuse me. I don't think anybody. Well, some people choose to come into research. Most people I know did not. We fall into it.
Did you?
No, I did not. I fell into it. Yeah, I did a bunch of things I realized I sucked at too. So, yeah. But I'm also a big geek, obviously. And there are two things that I've always had in the back of my head in the research industry, thinking. One was the Foundation books by Isaac Asimov and the idea of psychohistory, right?
Oh.
Yes. So, who's going to be the Harry Seldon of the research world? And
I've got it.
Yeah. And often when I was talking about what I thought the future would look like, I would use the clip from Minority Report, where Tom Cruise is walking through the mall, and there's all the personalized ads coming through, et cetera, et cetera. And those ideas of years that we can get there, right? These were not fanciful concepts, right? Maybe it's the tail wagging the dog, but the data, as we create more and more data, that data allows us to become both personalized in real time as well as highly predictive from a macro level. And that concept, at least the way I've always thought about it, was spokes on a wheel. And the data sources were each of the spokes. Right. The analytic engine is the hub, but the tire is the context. The tire is the framework that puts it together on, okay, what are the relevant data pieces that we can pull in to be able to answer the right business question. And it's really exciting. Sorry, I'm geeking out now. It's really exciting that you and Delineate and Signal and hell, even IBM, right? Lots of companies coming together, embracing that and trying to create our own version of psychohistory in our own way. So anyway, hats off. I love that convergence. It's needed to happen for a long time.
And you're spot on. So, well, what I've seen, in particular the last couple of years, working with some amazing people inside companies who are really driving, this research revolution, because it is the big companies who are driving it. The company's got a bit of budget and they can afford to try something, and then okay, that worked, brilliant, let's move on. As they are going on that journey of convergence, and at the very end of it, when they are, they know when they're mature, they will have that unified data warehouse of all these amazing data sources, and they will chop and change them to answer different problems and in different ways whenever they need them, but that knowledge will be stored in there, just as you said, as you described back, and they did so well in Foundation, a Minority Report. So that it's weirdly, it does sound a bit like what you say, but there's also bang on the journey we see our customers going on. I mean, we're just one part of that. As you said, there are many other partners who are bringing those in. But what's interesting at the moment is it's the brands themselves who are building that spoke wheel, and doing the hard yards of working out of, what do I use and for what situation? When do I use it? Which, I think it's probably something we've all got to drive together and try to help everyone solve.
Yeah, no, I think so. Coke has probably been one that really took that leap a few years ago, and just changed up their entire organizational structure for this idea of we are embracing analytics, right, and building that. I think they call it the data machine internally, but building that machine that doesn't have much to do with methodology anymore. It has to do just with data, the right data to answer the right question.
And then the methodology then transforms the data to answer the right question. Yes. You're right, the foundation. I mean, we work with I'm going to say Better Cola because they're my customer, but working with other cola brands as well. And it is interesting, they're doing the parallel thing, so I think this is, but I guess that's quite interesting what you say, is that like they almost independently, these businesses, these big businesses are changing the way the research works, and they're dragging us alongside it. Black Swan's speciality is social data. We use AI to make it useful and to make it very predictive, but they'll also work with Signal and other people in order to try and to build this wheel you describe really well. But it's I just find it quite interesting. It's these guys driving it, the smart ones driving it, and not really the other way around, the industry driving them yet.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that will change. There's really good people talking about unified databases as well. So,
Yeah.
we at some point dig all this
Well,
together.
so I keep watching. So, I think Palantir is obviously one of the companies that helped usher this in.
Doing all right.
And yeah, well, I can't wait for their IPO. I mean, I've got the money set aside. Like, I'm buying Palantir stock. Um, now, even though they've done kind of spooky shit, working with the government and those type of things.
Kind of cool.
But it is interesting now that we have these companies that were on the fringe and have been very successful. I mean, my God, Palantir we're valued at billions already before they've even done their IPO, because they proved that in very specific use cases. And
Yeah.
yeah, so to be able to now take that and say, look, these models definitely can be applied in much more commercial scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So where they were more on risk mitigation and finding bad guys and those type of things, it's super exciting to see companies like you, like Black Swan, that are leading that to say we can take the same idea, right? Not doing what they do necessarily, but the same idea, and we can apply it for very specific commercial success, and it's working, obviously, or else you wouldn't be growing. You wouldn't be having this conversation with me. And I think that's a point for our listeners to understand. If you think this, so here's my challenge to the research industry. If you think that methodology is the only thing that works, this man right here says you're wrong, because your business is growing significantly by not being methodologically focused, but instead being data focused. And you are an example of what the future looks like, as far as I'm concerned. We have to look a whole lot more like Black Swan as an industry, or we're just going to be marginalized by companies like you or by Palantir. I mean, imagine you think Palantir in 2 or 3 years may not come and knocking on your door and say, yeah, you know what, we're going to go after the research industry. I mean, they absolutely could. So.
Wait, I mean, you're spot on what you said. And obviously, I would say that because I'm a geek analytics mind. But what I definitely say the lesson that Black Swan is learning is that you need to dock that into useful use cases. So as you said, Palantir did very specific kind of scary, dark use cases, and that they made analytics work. And in research, most of the conversation we have in Black Swan is how can we map this new technology where you can predict so accurately so far in the future with real useful use cases in the research industry, where it really does map to making product, or it really does map to, where it sits in with bases, all these kind of important things. So yeah, I think the research industry is just a change, what the tool set is changing. I don't think research is changing. If anything, it's even more important as we get more worried about longer term future and accuracy and predictions and data. We need the same people, just using different tools, would be my view.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things I've said for years is that the who, what, when, where, and how, that's we don't control those things anymore, right? Those as data sources. But the why, that is the piece where research can add the value. Is that understanding the context and helping with the business, the contextual business decisions on this is what this means for our business itself. But so interesting, you describe yourself first as an analytics company, then as a technology company. How much of that consulting, of that why, are you doing with your clients as well?
So interestingly, about 50% of our work is consulting with our clients, taking the outputs from the machine and making sure they're useful in the business. Now, that is what we see with our customers as they use us more and more. That gets taken in house. So the customer themselves are like, okay, cool, we get how to use the machine now. We know how to do this, and also we want to do it in our own time. We don't want to be calling you up. We want to control this. So it's about 50-50 now. Is people using machine and machine when it comes to the way our revenue is kind of built to our customers, but it's definitely going more towards a machine, as either customers or resellers in some cases are picking up the machine and doing some good stuff with it. But it maps to your point, is you've got to make this relevant and useful to the business. Like knowing the future is only really, Harry Seldon was only really good because he had a really important mission to achieve.
Right. Right. And he had a big canvas, right? It's like, oh, the fate of the galaxy, right? Civilization as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking bigger than us at the moment, but we'll get there.
Yeah. By the way, did you see the trailer? Was it Amazon, or there's a miniseries, a Foundation miniseries coming out.
Wow. Well, I could geek out about that all day. I don't think everyone else would be interested about that. It's probably exciting news I've heard all day.
Yeah, but it looks interesting. So that's actually a good segue then, because I want to be conscious of time for both you and I and our listeners. So what does what's the next year look like for Black Swan? Um, what are some of the cool things that you're doing? What do you hope to achieve over the short term?
So it's going to be nice to getting back to proper growth. We've survived pretty well, the COVID thing, but it was hard for all of us. We've all done things which, we almost want to put away in the closet behind us now. People are coming back and selling, but that's been good because we've used that time as well to really start to look at prediction accuracy. So, we've reduced it. It's a bit difficult being called Black Swan and being a sales guy for research when you're in the middle of a Black Swan moment, i.e.
Yeah.
COVID-19,
Right,
and you
right.
didn't predict it.
Right.
It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you do this now, out. So, but interestingly, you look at like how everyone's responded then in Black Swan. So now it's like, right, we need to understand this. So we've changed our classifiers and our predictions. So we understand what's happening in COVID because of COVID, and then what's going to happen the other side of COVID. When we have some sort of semblance of normality, and that's been amazing because 70% of the questions our customers are being asked by their internal units are,
What's next?
is this real? Is this going to go away? Is this going to?
Yeah.
So we can answer that now with this like significant accuracy. So that's been a huge through this year, which we'll build on next year and like power through and make all our much more accurate over long term. And then really melding with social data, with sales data. Sorry. So what we're able to do with sales data is not only just say, look, we know that a trend is going to be big in 6 months time, but also say, look, in 18 months time, the market size of these ingredients or this benefit or this theme is going to be this size. So we can start making a plan now to getting, our brands into that growing space or shrinking space, if that's what you mean. So that sales data for me is so key because it just means we've got all the answers. We know exactly, we can advise people where to go with immense accuracy, and we know it's going to affect them. It's not trend, there's nothing. So those are the big things. I think we just need to push to be more accurate, longer term predictions, and then really help our customers by telling them, size of market, sales size, rather than just social size.
Very cool. Very cool. Now put on your prediction then. So going out for a year, what do you think? What does the insight space look like 5 years out? And what role does Black Swan play in that marketplace?
Good question. So I'm going to have to steal your answer from earlier, Lenny. So I think you're right,
Okay.
that hub and speak model of data, all our customers are getting there. All the smart ones are like, okay, we know what Black Swan does, we know what these guys do, we know what these guys do, and we're going to build a unit which brings it all together to answer the questions. I think that march will go on, and at some time, that'll be democratized, so it's available to, smaller businesses and businesses that don't spend millions, every year. So I think that's going to be that march. I do think we'll start to argue about things like prediction accuracy, length of prediction, as we start to really begin to use these new tools where we now quantifiably know what's going to happen in the future rather than just have a quality view. We're going to be who's got the most accurate view on 18 months, why that is, and and what other data can we tie to it in order to get the more of the why sort of questions out of it. So I think we're marching towards that unified the view you talked about, but really now beginning to worry about who is more accurate, who is going to give us the fastest insight on the future.
Okay, very cool. I always like meeting people that drink the same Kool-Aid as I do. Although I must say, my prediction accuracy, I think I'm pretty good at predicting what I suck at when. That is the part that I'm really bad at. It's like, oh, next year, 10 years later, oh, okay, finally.
But it's spot on, isn't it? And it is all about timing. Always, it's all about timing. So I can't say I'm the same. I thought this would be a small business of 11 people. There's 300 of us running around like mad fools. So I can't exactly say I'm any better at prediction than anyone, can
I? Well, that's fantastic. Steve, I've always enjoyed these conversations with everybody. I particularly enjoyed this one. Anybody that if we can talk about being DJs and foundation books at the same time, like, dude, all right, you and I have to sit down without everybody else listening and, have a drink and geek out at some point in the future. So I hope we get a chance to do that.
I'm looking forward to that. We will.
Okay. Well, congratulations on all the success. Looking forward to what comes next. Again, I think that what you and others are doing to transform the industry by proving this, right, is just incredibly important. You're just as important as the kind of the automation of the methodological side. Companies like Zappy or even Medallia and SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics, all those guys have taken tech and have made collecting traditional data
Yeah.
easy. You've transformed that piece of things. You guys are doing just as important work with now take all the data and let's transform the value of what insights can deliver from a predictive standpoint. So hats off to you. Congratulations.
Well, very lucky. So thank you, Lenny.
All right. Will you be well? Hope you and your family stay safe. And we will chat soon.
Stay at school, you hope. All right. See you soon. Bye bye.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Steve. All right.